Hey everybody, we're back with another cold hardy citrus taste test. And today's review I've been waiting to do for quite a long time. I wanted to time it right where I got both of these fruit here on the cutting board. On the left here is the Taiwanica lemon, and on the right here is the Tai Tri Citradia, which is a hybrid between the Taiwanica lemon and a trifoliate orange. So basically what we have here is a hardy lemon substitute, and it's even hardier mini-me. So I thought this would be a very fun pairing to do because, at least in my opinion, Taiwanica lemon is already a very good hardy citrus, and I've had other people and family try it, and they all agreed too. This made a very good lemon substitute, and we'll go further into that, but my excitement about Tai Tri was that if it was even remotely similar to Taiwanica, at the least it was a great improvement over standard trifoliate orange, and at the most it could also serve as a good lemon substitute in colder zones. So we finally have a larger fruit here. This one is thanks to Virginia Fruit Grower. We also had a really small one to sample and compare that came from Mellon, Pennsylvania. And that was like a little teaser for what was to come with these larger fruit here. So I'm really interested to see what's going on with these. But first thing we can get into is, of course, weighing these fruit. Because as you can tell, Tai Tri, like many other 50-50 hybrids, is almost perfectly intermediate between the two, both in terms of appearance and size. So this looks a little larger than some trifoliate orange, and it has that Taiwanica lemon appearance. And again, it's only a little bit larger, coming in at 71 grams. So it's still on the, I guess like the small to medium side for one of these citrus fruit here. The Taiwanica lemon itself comes in at 225 grams, so it's a fairly large fruit. I'll call that small, medium, somewhere in that range. We'll compare it to some of the others there. And you might notice too, before we go any further, Tai Tri is technically a Citradia, whereas you might expect it to be a Citremon, because Taiwanica lemon is not a true lemon. Taiwanica lemon is actually most closely related to sour oranges. So it's quite interesting how this came to be, but basically, to me, this is a sour orange that tastes a lot more and functions more as a lemon. But you can definitely see that in its appearance being more squat and round than a typical lemon. And same goes for the Tai Tri here. So it is classified as a Citradia, not a Citremon, which is pretty interesting because it's actually extremely hard to obtain Citradias anyway. It's not a very common cross that was employed. But let's go into the scratch test for each of these. Taiwanica lemon has a pretty interesting smell that is pretty polarizing, and I don't particularly like the zest from memory, but we're going to test that again. Yeah, it's interesting because it's mixed. It does have a lemon smell, and then it has something that's a bit skunkier in the rind itself, because it has that lemon and pomelo smell, which you definitely get when you open these up, but then it has a slight pungency to it that you can't quite describe, but I know I'm about to taste it here. It is a bit bitter and numbing. And that's slightly better than memory. Actually, yeah, no, that's significantly better than memory. So I guess it depends when you get this fruit too. There's always variability, but the zest actually wasn't too bad. It did have a bit of a lemony taste. Slight bitterness on the finish, but that's actually quite usable. I'll give it like a medium to high quality there. Because there is variability, and I have had it where You know, I might have a slight numbing now, but not too bad. I didn't consume too much of it, but Taiwanica lemon definitely has compounds in the rind itself that can numb your tongue, kind of similar to how C35 as a fruit did that to me. So now we'll get a scratch on the Tai Tri. Let's get a good smell on that one. So it's very interesting. The smell too is also pretty intermediate between the two. It has that Taiwanica lemon smell, which is nice. It's better than a normal trifoliate orange, but then it does also still retain that floral aspect of the trifoliate orange. So it's kind of like you get lemon and floral smells in there. Not in the same way where like a yuzu is lemony and floral, but along those lines. It's not a bad smell. It's actually quite decent. But in terms of the zest here, we'll find out about this. Oh yeah. The zest is stronger. Ooh, and very bitter. That's a low quality zest. There's some very minimal potential with that, but it's very bitter. Otherwise the taste wasn't bad. It's just a matter of overcoming that. Alright, get my palate cleansed from that one. So now what I'm excited to see, and perhaps we'll note some of that aroma now. Lemon, pomelo. And I gotta figure out a way to describe that third aspect to it. We'll say skunky, question mark. I don't quite like using that word as much, at least not for this fruit. Some fruit might deserve it a bit more, but it can be perceived pretty negatively. But you know, think of it in the same way of how Changsha has kind of like a funny, like marijuana type of smell to it. It's not exactly the same as that, but it's similar. Similar in that it has a hard to describe, kind of unusual smell that you might not be used to. And this is similar, plus the extra floral notes from the trifoliate orange. I don't know that you necessarily get any of the pininess or anything like that, which is a good sign. That is definitely a good sign for the maybe the resin content or something like that for the fruit. So let's start with cutting the Taiwanica. So we have a frame of reference here. And you can tell at this time of year, this was picked, well, we're in like late November now, but this was picked like mid-November. Depending where you are, where you're growing this, how much heat you have, you'll probably be picking these a little bit green. That's what we did here. It was just the time of year that we were at stands and we wanted to grab some fruit anyhow. And this actually colored up a little bit, but most of them were pretty green on there. But from the fruit that we did sample, it didn't seem to have a huge impact on taste. And I've been finding that across the board. If you get the fruit pretty much like 90% ripe or so, they're still very good. But this does yellow up more, and we've seen it more yellow. In our first video that we covered it, actually, we had a fruit that was more colorful than this one. It's very juicy. You could tell it's dripping already. And look at that inside. It's actually quite a pretty fruit. I really like the inside and the smell. Oh wow. It smells amazing when you cut it open. For those of you who have had, and I use this as a reference because a lot of things tend to taste like it, and it is like one of those like citrus ancestors anyway, one of those original citrus, but the pomelo, specifically the Chinese pomelo, and Stan has one that we're going to try and get some fruit from, but even your local H Mart or an Asian store might carry them too. But the Chinese pomelo has a wonderful fragrance to it, and that's exactly what I'm picking up here. Yeah, it smells just like a pomelo and a lemon. I love the smell on this. And when you make a citrus-ade or a lemonade out of this, you get that aroma with it, and it's fantastic. It's probably one of, if not my favorite, lemonade of the citrus fruit. I put it on the level of like a Meyer lemonade. I mean, the I-Chang lemon, I made a lemonade out of that, and that was really good too. But this was even better in my opinion. It's just very complex and fruity and floral. Super, super nice. But that's nice to smell that again. Even with this underripe fruit, it still looks great on the inside. So now we're going to see how this Tai Tri compares on the inside. And I've seen some pretty funny pictures of this where it really does just look shrunken down, and maybe a few more seeds crammed in there, as it tends to be the case with trifoliate. But this is quite juicy too. That's squeezing out. Oh yeah, and look at that there. That is chock full of seeds by comparison. And I actually have one more on the side here we can cut open and just take a look at. But this is most certainly going to look similar. But just to double check, some fruit are seedier than others. Oh yeah, this one feels seedy too. Look at that. So these are very seedy fruit. It definitely gets that from the trifoliate orange. But otherwise, if you look close enough, you can see that resemblance here with the vesicles. If we could get that to focus good. You can see kind of those separations, those different layers there. It is like if you shrunk it down and stuffed the same amount of seeds, if not more, and then given the size of the fruit being so small, it has a lot of seeds. That's probably like towards the bottom of the ratings with the trifoliate orange. So it has a ton of seeds. Taiwanica lemon has a pretty moderate amount of seeds. I've definitely seen a lot worse. This looks like less than you would see in a Sacaton, maybe just by a little. That's just one I'm thinking of from memory there. But let's see, in terms of juice, I mean, it's actually fairly juicy, the Tai Tri. The only thing holding it back, though, is the amount of seeds. So the amount of juice could be a lot more if this had a lower seed content. But because it has a high seed content, it's kind of knocked down a bit. That might even be like a moderately juicy, something like that. I have to figure out where I want to put that one. But basically, we know in this video here that it has the potential to be juicier, if not for all the seeds. The Taiwanica lemon itself, though, it's very juicy, kind of similar to an I-Chang lemon, maybe slightly below that. Let's see. Very juicy, less than I-Chang. Just so we have some references there. In terms of peelability, neither of these fruits seem very peelable or like you'd want to, but you know what, you definitely could peel Taiwanica actually. And it peels kind of similar to Sacaton too, where it's actually a bit surprising for a hardy citrus. So it's fairly peelable. Kind of similar to that Sacaton there. As for Tai Tri, I don't know if that's really feasible. I mean, that's pretty tightly adhered. I'm leaning more along the lines of it's not really peelable. So I can't even get some good separation with it cut open, so that would be really difficult with the peel on. I'm just gonna say it's unpeelable, really. Maybe if you tried hard enough you could. I mean, I've technically peeled a trifoliate orange before, but it was extremely difficult, so not really worth doing there. But okay, let's get into the flavor of these. I'm going to start with this one just because I don't want to have a negative bias from the normal Taiwanica lemon first. I want to give it a chance, and I'll come back to it after the Taiwanica lemon to note the differences. But we just got to get like a million seeds out of the way before we could even try a little bite of this. Mostly because I'm precious with the seeds, and I do want to save these so we got some little baby Tai Tris. We actually did get some zygotic seedlings too, originally from Virginia Fruit Grower that came from these fruit, and we're growing those out, and we saw some interesting variation. They're mostly true to seed, but the variation you do get is pretty cool when it happens. Okay, so we got some tiny slices there. Let's see. Not a whole lot of flesh left. Quite sour. It's got a little bitterness too. It's kind of like lemon and grapefruit, but there's a little something else to it. Yeah, it has a bitter component to it. It wouldn't be as bad otherwise, but it definitely takes away from it a bit. And you do get a little more of that trifoliate flavor when you bite into it. I gotta say, it doesn't help that there's so little flesh in it, because I guess the rinds and the pith and stuff do still contain some of those off flavors where when you bite into it, it's not amazing. This is one where maybe as a juice it would be a lot better because the lemon and grapefruit flavors, but just eating it like that was not so pleasant. But it is very sour. I didn't really get any sweetness, honestly, so we're gonna say none. Bitterness was fairly bitter. Again, kind of like grapefruit-like. Trifoliate influence on this one is pretty darn high. We'll say very high for now. And that's probably why this is known for being so cold hardy too. So it's kind of like an improved trifoliate orange, but I think these are hardy to maybe a little bit below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty good. But there's definitely a significant trade-off there. Let's see, edibility is kind of low, honestly. As much as this variety excites me, we gotta be honest about the flavor and the edibility there. Most normal people will not enjoy that. It's simply too bitter. I mean, most people have trouble with grapefruit as it is, so something like this, it's even less approachable. Just trying to get like a little more. Hard to get that. It's definitely better just juicing straight out of the fruit, because trying to nibble on these little segments is almost impossible. Yeah, it's just like grapefruit and lemon, basically. That's the closest I can compare it to. Probably more for ornamental use and for juicing. I would not recommend this for fresh eating. So, with that being said, let's go into now our Taiwanica lemon, which this should be quite a bit more pleasurable now. And also keep these seeds out of the way. Alright, we'll get one more slice there. Okay. I think this is one of those ones where the smell is almost deceiving because it It smells so nice you just want to eat it fresh, but it's probably going to be very sour. But let's go for that. Yep, that's exactly as I remember. It's very pleasant, especially compared to this one, because it's a lot less sour and bitter, and it's already still a very sour fruit. So this one's just very, very acidic, but this is good. This always reminds me it has primarily a lemon taste, but then it has that pomelo taste too. So not grapefruit, pomelo. There's not really bitterness in here, but there is those kind of other floral citrusy notes. I'm almost inclined, it might be a stretch to say it has a little sweetness, but a very little bit. Sourness is very sour, but this one is definitely more sour. Bitterness is like very little, if any, honestly. I don't know if I detect any, but let me cleanse the palate and see. We'll get a bite of this one. Honestly, not really. I'd almost say it has none. I don't really get bitterness in that. Obviously, it is sour, and sourness can be confused with bitterness, but I don't think this is a bitter fruit. But sometimes I'm a little less sensitive to bitter things too. Or I should say a little more tolerant to bitter things. I can recognize if they are, but I can tolerate it a lot more than some people can. But it doesn't have any trifoliate influence. And I don't know, it's kind of medium on the edibility scale. I think a lot of people could still use this like a lemon with pretty good success. And the people I had try it still thought it was a very good fruit. And they were just used to, for the most part, pretty commercial citrus. So if this tastes normal enough to people, then yeah, I think the edibility is there at least. It's just not necessarily edible out of hand, or most people wouldn't, just because of the sourness. It'd be like eating a lemon out of hand, but functionally and flavor-wise, it definitely serves that purpose well. So, interesting to see that difference, because this one has that lemon pomelo taste, and then the other one has like the lemon grapefruit taste, and you can tell the only real difference between that is this one got a whole lot more bitterness from the trifoliate orange. There's something in there that changed this fruit. And the smaller one I sampled, I think it was maybe a little less bitter, but it still had that grapefruit flavor to it. So with that part being consistent, I don't know if later in the season maybe, but I mean, at this time of year anyway, you'd probably be looking to harvest these, so it's either one that has to be like a little overripe, or this is just what it is. It just has those flavors. But yeah, uses anything you'd use a lemon for. Anything you'd... And in terms of the Tai Tri, yeah, mostly juice. Can't think of a whole lot else for this one. It's mostly just a juicing fruit because, while you could use it for preserves and things like that, I mean, the rind is a bit too bitter, and it's kind of tricky pairing stuff with those grapefruit flavors, so I think that's kind of where I'm at with that one. But let's check the bricks on these. Let's see what the bricks reads. Maybe give us a hint at the sugar content. But we could start with a little juice from the pomelo slice we got here. Nice, so got our sample. We'll hold that up to the light. And that reads an even 10. So Taiwanica lemons, 10 on the bricks. And, whoopsie. And we'll just get a pH reading there too, which I imagine will read pretty high, just being so lemony. Alright, we'll let that sit. Let's get the Tai Tri next, which this will be a challenge now, getting that juice on there. So wipe off the other one. I'm going to try my best here. Let's not just get a million seeds flying off. And that's exactly what happened. Come on, you. Okay. That's about as close as we're getting right now. It's very seedy, so if you are juicing this, you will need some sort of a strainer underneath, so you're not getting a million seeds and things. Otherwise, this reads an 11.5. It's 11.5 on the bricks, yet its sweetness is almost undetectable, just because of how sour and bitter it tastes. I wonder if I could just cheat here and use this for the pH strip. Just because I don't want to go through all that again. So there's our Taiwanica lemon, and there's our Tai Tri. Both reading quite acidic there. Kind of similarly, actually, so we'll find out. I don't even know if we're going to get a good pH reading on the Tai Tri, honestly. Just because there's so little juice, I don't think it's enough for my pH meter. So we may just have to settle with the strip and know that it's give or take 3 or less from what I'm seeing. I mean, they're both very, very similar, so it's got to be less than or equal to 3. And as for the Taiwanica lemon, kind of similar. We will find out specifically what that is there. Yeah, I do wonder in terms of, maybe I'll get a small cup. I want to give the Tai Tri a chance, but admittedly, that's probably just my own bias towards it. So let me get a strainer. Alright, we don't have a lot of small strainers, so that's what we got to work with. But let me see what I can make happen with this juice. Yeah, I'm getting a decent sniff of this too coming up. Yeah, it just has that that grapefruit component is definitely what's taking away from this. I should say that grapefruit bitterness, because grapefruit do have positive aspects to them, but when it comes down to the bitterness, that's what can really get this here. So we're going to make a little citrus-ade live and see if that does this thing any sort of justice here. So we've got a little bit of the Tai Tri juice. I'm going to mix an equal portion of sugar and then about 2 to 3 portions of water, and we'll see how that tastes all together. So we got just our little bit of sugar there. That looks pretty good. And now I'm just going to fill this up with a little water and then we'll get it mixing all together. Okay. So there's a little improvised here. I don't normally make the citrus-ades, but I know I don't have enough juice to pH test this one, so I just want to give a little more data if possible. And I did have high hopes for this, so I'm a little disappointed overall in the taste. It's one of those like meeting your heroes types of things. But there we go, we have a nice little lemonade made with the Tai Tri. Hopefully that sugar is mostly dissolved, and let's see how that helps the taste. Alright, it's better as an aid. I might have added too much water to that. Let's see. Yeah. That's better as a citrus aid. It's a lot more drinkable. Almost has a little more orange flavor to it, I should say. It's like maybe now the sour orange comes out. Maybe that's another flavor I'm getting here. Definitely has sour orange and grapefruit. Okay. You know, a component of that kind of reminds me of the I Chang lemon citrus-ade I made yesterday. That's pretty good. Definitely as it gets sweeter, so as I got towards the bottom it was better. Obviously, of course, but if you add a substantial amount of sugar or honey to it, you know, whatever kind of sweetener you have at your disposal, it's quite drinkable. And actually, given the slight bitterness, it would probably make a good pie. And we have made a good pie with some of the more sour and bitter hardy citrus, and it turned out pretty good actually. So we might put that down as another one of the uses for that here. We'll finish off that last bit. But yeah, that was pretty good actually once it was diluted and mixed with sugar. So now is probably a good time to put up those scores for you guys. We have a lot out here, but I feel like we got a pretty comprehensive look at things. It's very interesting seeing these two side by side here. The Taiwanica lemon, of course, is superior between the two. In terms of flavor, juice, size, everything, it's a lot better. Tai Tri is pretty much just good for processing. That tends to be the case with some of these hybrids, especially the smaller and more bitter ones. It's got just a little too much bitterness there, where once you mix it with some sweetener of sorts, it helps a lot actually. And I quite enjoyed that lemonade as I got towards the bottom, where I'm like, okay, this isn't a useless fruit, but it's not as useful as some of the others. So I'm actually excited to see, we have one particular seedling that we're going to be documenting called Bi Tai Tri, where it's a Tai Tri seedling that has more bifoliate and unifoliate leaves, and it more resembles the Taiwanica lemon than it does the Tai Tri. So if the fruit are closer to this, but it has some of the hardiness that this one does, it might not be as good of a contender in like zone 7s, or at least colder zone 7, zone 6, where Tai Tri can normally do really well. But in a warmer zone 7, zone 8, it may have some potential. So we're testing that one out to see how hardy it is. But if it's closer to this, that'd be great. If it's somewhere in between the two of these, that could also be really good too. But I think in my head, I imagined it a little closer to this, but that's okay. I think partly too just the sheer amount of seeds in these two. This is similar with Trifoliate and some of the other hybrids, but sometimes a lot of the bitterness is around those seeds too. So when you get all these seeds in there, it kind of affects the flavor, whereas the closer to being seedless or the lower seed count, these seem to taste a bit better. So that's pretty interesting there, but very cool look at these two fruit. You know, we have the Taiwanica lemon and its mini-me, both very attractive ornamentals and things to consider. So a lot of you might not be able to grow Taiwanica lemon. I'm not even quite sure how successful we will be with it outdoors here, but we are propagating and testing them, and we have one in the unheated greenhouse that I'm sure will fly through the winter. But if you can't grow this and you can only grow this, it's not too bad. It's similar. It reminds me a lot of the Taiwanica lemon, but basically you're getting just a lot more sourness and bitterness than you normally would. But if this is all you can grow, or if this is one of your few options, it's still very good for juicing and processing, and you're probably used to that already. If you're growing hardy citrus, you know that half of the appeal is just having a citrus tree outdoors, just admiring its ornamental beauty, and then the other half is finding out what to do with the fruit besides just grow out the seeds. So that's what I'm thinking for this one. Interesting data otherwise, so I hope you guys enjoyed as always. Let me know what you think in the comments if you've tried either one of these, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.